The stars shimmered in a pattern that suggested something monumental was about to happen across the vast expanse of the galaxy. Ancient ships hovered in the orbit of a planet that had long since lost its natural beauty, but now served as a meeting place for species older and more powerful than anything humanity could imagine. Across the galaxy, leaders from every race of importance gathered, their ships brimming with power and technology that humanity could scarcely fathom. Today was the day they would meet humanity and decide its future. Among them, at the head of the assembly, a strange curiosity bloomed among the council members. They had been hearing rumors for years about Earth and its rapidly advancing species, and the galactic consensus was that humans were barely worth acknowledging, a species clinging to the edge of survival with primitive tools and ideologies, still learning how to live in peace among themselves. Their growing presence was a curiosity that now demanded an answer. As their emissaries prepared to make contact, they had hoped to witness some display of human power, some proof that humanity could hold its own in the galaxy. Yet as the appointed time arrived, they saw something unexpected on the screens. No warships or fleets, no gigantic displays of technology. Instead, a small ship came into view, barely half the size of most reconnaissance vessels in the fleet. Its design was sleek yet simple, nothing too flashy, nothing to suggest an overwhelming force, no extravagant display of lights or sounds. It simply appeared, and with it a message was transmitted in a calm voice. The human ambassador introduced themselves and stated that they had arrived. The words were simple enough, but to the council it was as if the room had suddenly gone quiet. The ship's presence seemed so insignificant, yet its audacity was impossible to ignore. A single human vessel against the might of the council's assembled ships. Surely they were mistaken. Surely they had miscalculated something. There was no way they had sent a lone ship to negotiate with beings capable of shattering worlds. In an instant, what did this mean? Did it imply that humans were either arrogant enough to think they were beyond attack, or foolish enough to think they could rely on diplomacy alone, without the weight of power behind them? As the council deliberated, they couldn't help but question the humans' motives. Were they here to beg for help, or did they intend to surprise the galaxy with a weapon they had been hiding away for centuries? Was this some kind of elaborate trap designed to strike when their guard was down? The council sat in silence as the single vessel drifted toward the planet's atmosphere. The surrounding fleet waited for any sign of a signal or aggression, and yet nothing came. The human ship remained passive, but its presence still felt like an invitation to discover what this strange species was truly capable of. A single ship, yet the entire galaxy had come to watch. And now humanity had captured the attention of the most powerful beings in the universe. What would they do next? As the single human vessel glided silently through the cold expanse of space, the alien ships surrounding it remained unmoving, their sensors trained on the small craft, as if expecting something to happen, something to change. The ship's minimal design suggested nothing out of the ordinary, but the silence in the air made it feel as though it were an ominous prelude to something great. As the human ship finally came to a stop in the orbit of the council's meeting planet, a signal was sent from the vessel to the fleet and across the council's communication channels. It was a simple message transmitted in clear human speech. The words came through calmly and with certainty: "We've arrived, and we're ready." It wasn't an elaborate message, no grandiose speech, no plea for mercy, no threats of power, just those words: "We've arrived, and we're ready." The council members sat in stunned silence, unsure of how to react. Some of the alien leaders glanced at each other, as if waiting for one of them to voice what they were all thinking. Was this some kind of joke? The humans had sent a single ship to face the collective might of their united fleet, and all they had to offer were these few words. Was this some kind of elaborate trick meant to make the council underestimate them? Or was it that humans really had no concept of what they were up against? Whatever the intention behind the message, it was impossible to ignore the arrogance behind it. One lone ship addressing an entire galaxy of powerful species, without even a hint of hesitation or fear in its tone. Some of the council members found themselves intrigued by the sheer confidence of the human commander. Others felt an unease that they couldn't quite shake. The species they had long dismissed as primitive and weak now stood before them with nothing but a calm determination. In their words Were the humans truly this confident? Were they prepared to stand before the galaxy's might without fear? Or was there something deeper at play? Perhaps the human race was hiding something far more dangerous, something that could shake the very foundations of the Council's unity. Others in the room voiced doubts. They expected to see a grand fleet. They expected the human race to put on a show, something to prove they had earned the right to stand with the galaxy's elite. But instead they had seen a single ship, without even a hint of weaponry visible. Something about it felt too simple, too humble. Was this an invitation to a game? Or was it a challenge of some sort? The silence in the council chambers stretched on as each leader processed the message in their own way. Was it bravery or stupidity? Or was there something the humans knew that the rest of the galaxy had missed, something far beyond their understanding? The lone vessel remained in orbit, motionless. The voice of the human commander crackled over the comm again. We've arrived, and we're ready. It was clear now that the message was not a threat. It was something else, something deeply human, something that didn't rely on force or fear, but on the quiet strength of an unknown species who had just begun to reveal what they were truly capable of. As the human vessel floated silently in the cold void, the council members exchanged uneasy glances. The calmness in the message lingered like a challenge in the air. Something about it gnawed at the edges of their confidence. A few of the alien leaders began to speak in low murmurs, questioning what this boldness truly meant. Could humanity truly be this foolish? Or had they tapped into something no one else had yet seen? With the other species unwilling to show weakness, the debate grew louder across the council hall. Some were ready to dismiss humanity entirely, believing this lone ship to be a desperate cry for attention. Others felt something more insidious at play. Perhaps humans weren't foolish at all. Perhaps they understood something the council hadn't considered. Yet the question that weighed most heavily in the room was, why had they sent only a single vessel? The aliens were used to witnessing displays of power fleets full of warships, messages of dominance and control. But this human ship had no such grandiosity. It was silent and humble, yet strangely audacious. The tension grew thicker in the room, and despite the alien species' vast intelligence, no one could yet answer the simplest question: why only one ship? Why not show the galaxy what they were capable of? The council could not fathom why the humans would send so little to represent themselves against beings who commanded fleets capable of wiping out entire planets. The very thought of a species believing itself worthy of such an audience, without an ounce of showmanship or threats, left them baffled. Some began to question the intelligence of their own kind, wondering if they had misjudged humanity in the past. What were the humans planning? The thought of facing an entire galaxy and sending only one representative ship seemed beyond reason, unless there was something more subtle and dangerous at play. After an uneasy silence, one of the more experienced council members, an ancient being from a race known for its strategic brilliance, spoke up. Its voice was calm, but carried an air of authority. "They're testing us." The room went still as the weight of the statement sank in. The human vessel isn't here to show strength or weapons. They're here to see how we react. They're probing our unity and our response. The room shifted. The idea that humanity was studying the council rather than simply pleading for a place within it was a new thought, one that caused the other leaders to rethink their position. It was not an aggressive show of force, but a calculated move, an invitation to witness the reaction of a galaxy that prided itself on power. They had sent a single ship to measure how the council would respond, a decision to provoke without violence. And the more the council deliberated, the more it became clear that humanity was not the fragile species they had once thought. They were a species that had learned to survive by overcoming challenges, not through sheer force, but by learning from its mistakes and growing stronger for it. Still, the question lingered: what was this test truly about, and what would happen next? As the single human ship remained motionless in orbit, awaiting the council's response, the pressure was on, and the stakes were higher than anyone had anticipated. As the council grappled with their uncertainty, a decision was made. The alien leaders needed to understand the humans better before making any further judgment. The galaxy could not afford to ignore the presence of a species that had shown such boldness, even if it was strange and untested. And so they summoned the human ambassador to the central chamber, the largest and most prestigious meeting space in the galaxy, filled with representatives from 100 different worlds, each as ancient as the stars themselves. The chamber buzzed with quiet anticipation as the human ship entered, and came to a gentle rest on the far side of the room, where a platform was set up for the ambassador to stand alone. The ship's entrance was humble, a soft hum of engines, followed by a heavy silence. The human commander emerged from the vessel, a young woman dressed in plain attire, with an expression of unyielding calm. She stood at the center of the platform, gazing outward not with arrogance, but with steady resolve. It was a gaze that held no fear, yet exuded nothing but purpose, a deep determination to be heard. The council members watched her closely. The beings around the chamber exchanged wary glances, none sure what to make of this lone figure standing before them. They had expected a display of human power, perhaps a dazzling weapon demonstration, or a grand strategy to counter the council's supremacy. Instead, they were greeted by simplicity and silence. It was as if this human commander had come to prove something without speaking. The chamber filled with an uncomfortable quiet as the human ambassador took her place in the center before a series of large screens projecting the council's collective faces. She was alone, no entourage, no soldiers, just one woman facing an entire galaxy of the most advanced species to have ever existed. The silence lingered before a voice from one of the alien leaders broke the stillness. You stand before the galaxy's finest minds, and yet you send only one ship and one representative. Why should we take you seriously? The human commander tilted her head slightly, her eyes never leaving the alien leader who had spoken. She smiled faintly and then responded, "Because we don't need an army to prove our worth." The response was simple, but the weight behind it was undeniable. She didn't need to elaborate further. Her words were not a threat, but a statement of human strength. The room fell silent again as the gravity of her words began to sink in. No threats, no posturing, no demands, simply the statement of a species that had learned to survive through more than just force, but through the strength of its spirit and mind. Humans are not like the other races of the galaxy, the ambassador continued, her voice calm yet firm. We don't rely on sheer numbers or technology alone. We rely on our ability to think, our ability to adapt, and most of all, our ability to unite when the odds are against us. For a moment the chamber was still. No one spoke. Not a single alien dared to respond to her statement. The human commander's confidence was unlike anything they had seen before. She wasn't asking for their acceptance. She wasn't pleading for a place in their ranks. She was simply stating what they had already learned time and time again: survival through unity, survival through ingenuity, and survival through an unwavering belief in the potential of humanity itself. Now, the galaxy had to decide how it would respond. Would they accept, or would they reject the human spirit? The chamber was heavy with silence as the council members processed the words of the human commander. The audacity of her statement hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. It was not the bombastic arrogance they had expected, but something far more unsettling, a quiet confidence that seemed to resonate with a deeper truth, something fundamental about humanity that no one had fully understood until now. The alien leaders exchanged nervous glances. Some were still convinced the human ship was hiding a weapon of unimaginable power, but the commander's words cut through that notion, leaving an undeniable mark on their collective psyche. The old and powerful races around the chamber found themselves questioning everything they had assumed about humanity. The silence finally broke as one of the council members, a stoic being from a species known for its strategic brilliance, spoke up. "We will test you." The voice rang through the room, its tone calm, yet filled with an air of finality. The human ambassador did not flinch or react. She simply nodded. It was a request for proof, a test of the very core of her species' claim, and the room filled with the tension of expectation. No longer would humanity's strength be measured by grandiose fleets or extravagant technology. It would be tested by something far more subtle. The council members began to speak among themselves, organizing a series of trials meant to push the limits of what humans could accomplish. Each test would be a measure of adaptability, intelligence, and resourcefulness. These were the qualities the humans had claimed as their greatest assets, and now they would be put to the ultimate test. One by one, the challenges were revealed to the human ambassador, each trial designed to test humanity's ability to think on its feet, to survive in situations that would break lesser species. The first test was one of strategy, a complex simulation involving a simulated battle between fleets where the human commander was tasked with leading her single ship through the chaos of an enemy assault. She was given no advanced knowledge, no access to superior technology, simply her wits and experience against a simulated enemy fleet that outnumbered her 10-1. As the simulation began, the Council watched with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. The human commander moved quickly and decisively, weaving her ship through the battlefield, making use of every resource at her disposal. She outmaneuvered the simulated forces not through overwhelming force, but through clever tactics and the ability to read her opponent's every move within moments. She had turned the tide of the battle, leaving the alien leaders stunned. It wasn't the result they had anticipated. She had outwitted them with nothing but her knowledge of strategy. The next trial was one of problem-solving, a puzzle designed to test the human mind. The Council set before her a series of complex scenarios involving everything from environmental disasters to technological malfunctions. The puzzles were meant to break her resolve, but time and again the human ambassador solved them with a grace that belied the complexity of the challenges. The final trial was the most dangerous yet, a physical challenge set within an artificial environment. Designed to test survival instincts, the human commander would be placed on a hostile world with minimal equipment and left to survive against its harsh conditions. It was meant to prove whether humanity could survive without the luxury of technology or superior force. When the trial began, the human ambassador faced extreme temperatures, hostile creatures, and an unforgiving terrain. But what stood out to the Council was not her resilience, it was her creativity. She used what little she had and overcame every obstacle, not through brute strength, but through her ability to adapt and turn the environment to her advantage. The trials were complete, and the Council was left speechless. The tests had shown them exactly what humanity was made of. It was not through weapons or overwhelming numbers that humanity thrived, but through the relentless drive to survive and adapt, and most importantly, through their ability to think beyond the immediate threat and envision solutions no one else would think of. As the final trial came to an end, and the human commander emerged from the harsh environment unharmed, the chamber was filled with a tense silence. The Council members, who had watched with growing astonishment, could no longer deny the truth that humanity had just revealed to them. The human ambassador was not merely a representative of a species struggling to survive. She was the embodiment of everything humanity had become, an unyielding force of ingenuity and adaptability. The trials were designed to break her, to reveal any weaknesses, and yet she had passed them all with a calmness and resilience that even the most powerful of the Council had struggled to match. The room was filled with the hum of whispered conversations, the atmosphere thick with a blend of awe and uncertainty. The Council had hoped to expose humanity's limits, but instead they had seen a species that defied all conventional expectations. The ambassador's performance had forced the galaxy's most powerful minds to reconsider their understanding of what strength truly meant. And now, as the Council gathered to deliberate their decision, they found themselves wrestling with a new set of questions. Who were these humans? What exactly had they unleashed on the galaxy? By allowing them into the fold, the human ship, still floating silently outside, had not once shown aggression or demanded anything beyond a chance to be heard, but its presence was now undeniably powerful, not through sheer force, but through its indomitable spirit and the actions of a single human commander who had shown them that humanity had far more to offer than anyone had imagined. It wasn't weapons or technology that set humanity apart. It was their approach to the world, their refusal to back down. Even when faced with insurmountable odds, the ambassador's words echoed in the Council's minds. We rely on our ability to adapt. We rely on our ability to unite when the odds are against us. It was a simplicity that struck to the heart of what the galaxy had missed all along. Perhaps it was this very unity that made humanity such a force to be reckoned with, despite its youth in the grand timeline of the universe. The Council had seen what humanity could do when pushed to its limits, but what they had not yet realized was that the true power of humanity lay not in a single individual's will to succeed, but in the collective strength of a species willing to fight together against anything that sought to destroy them. It was this potential that now hung in the balance. As the Council began to debate humanity's place within the galaxy, no longer could they dismiss the human race as insignificant or weak. It had become clear that humanity was not just a species to be tolerated, but one that would change the very dynamics of the galactic order. The alien leaders realized they were facing something unprecedented, a species that would not bend or break under pressure, but rather rise to meet it time and time again. And as the Council continued to deliberate their decision, they could not ignore the growing sense of admiration for what they had witnessed. Humanity's future in the galaxy was no longer uncertain. It was inevitable. The only question now was how the galaxy would welcome them. The Council convened in a private chamber, away from the prying eyes of the waiting delegates. There, the discussions grew heated as the various species deliberated the implications of what they had just witnessed. Some leaders, especially those from older, more established civilizations, struggled with the idea of letting humanity into their ranks. For centuries, their species had held the reins of galactic power, and the sudden prospect of admitting a species that had only recently begun to reach for the stars felt like an unpredictable gamble. What if humanity, with all its resilience, was simply too chaotic, too volatile to join the galactic fold? What if they changed everything they had worked so hard to build? But others, particularly those from more progressive factions, began to argue that humanity's unpredictable nature was exactly what the galaxy needed. For all their potential, humanity had something the Council lacked: a deep-rooted ability to adapt in the face of the unknown. The ability to thrive in adversity, to find solutions when none seemed possible, was not something the Council had ever had to rely on. The older races had grown comfortable, their technology far outpacing their need for innovation. They had grown used to dominance, to stability, and to the luxury of knowing what would come next. But humanity, for all its flaws, had never had that luxury. They had fought for every step of their existence, and their refusal to be crushed by circumstance made them an incredibly potent force. One leader, a towering, stone-skinned being from a distant, inhospitable planet, stood and addressed the Council. "We have watched them, tested them, and now we must acknowledge what we have seen. Humans are not like us. They will not sit idly and accept the status quo. Their strength lies in their unpredictability. They will challenge us, but they will also force us to innovate. They will not simply be a tool in our galaxy. They will be a force that shapes it." Across the room, the majority of the Council's leaders nodded thoughtfully. The murmurs of doubt slowly faded, replaced by a growing sense of inevitability. Humanity had passed every test, not by overwhelming force or alien technology, but by proving its willingness to act with intelligence and determination in situations where others would have failed. Yet, there was still resistance. The most conservative members, creatures who saw themselves as the backbone of the galaxy's order, feared what might happen if humanity's unpredictability was allowed to roam free. What if their species turned on the others? What if their unpredictability turned into recklessness, threatening the very balance of power they had spent millennia perfecting? The human commander's words echoed in their minds, though. "We don't need an army to prove our worth." There was something striking about her simplicity, her absolute confidence in the potential of her species. Perhaps they had misjudged humans. Perhaps they had been too quick to dismiss the qualities that made humanity what it was: their willingness to act without certainty, to take risks, and face the unknown head-on. After hours of intense discussion, the Council finally came to a unanimous decision. Humanity would be allowed into the galactic fold, but not as passive members. No, they would be partners in shaping the future. The galaxy would not be the same after humanity's arrival. Their influence would spread in ways no one could predict. But perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Humanity's unpredictability, its ability to unite in the face of adversity, would challenge the stagnant peace that the galaxy had enjoyed for so long. And while that might scare some, it would undoubtedly push all species to become better, to evolve, to confront their weaknesses. As the decision was made, the human ship outside the council's chambers remained silent, unaware of the monumental moment unfolding within. And yet, humanity's fate had already been sealed. The single vessel that had once seemed insignificant now stood as a symbol of what was to come, a future where humanity would no longer be the underdog, but a key player in the galactic stage. It wasn't just a new chapter in the history of the universe. It was the beginning of an entirely new story. The decision had been made, and as the Council's verdict was broadcast to the awaiting human vessel, a ripple of anticipation washed over the galaxy. The human ship, previously silent and still, responded with a flare of motion, slowly shifting its position in space. On board, the human commander stood at the helm, her gaze unwavering. She had known from the beginning that humanity's place among the stars would not be earned through force or by appeasing the established powers of the galaxy. It would be earned through proving their worth, through the very resilience and unity that had defined their species for centuries. As the human ambassador stood before the council once again, the weight of the moment settled into the room. She was no longer just the representative of a single ship, but a symbol of the human spirit. The spirit that would soon intertwine with the broader cosmic community. The faces of the council members, once filled with uncertainty and doubt, now reflected a mix of respect and cautious optimism. They had seen humanity face trials that would have crushed most other species. They had witnessed a race that had not only survived but thrived under pressure. Now, they would see how humanity would thrive among them. The human commander spoke once more, her voice filled with quiet strength. "We are honored to join you. But know this, we do not come to be your subordinates or to follow in your footsteps. We come to walk alongside you, to challenge you when needed, and to learn from you. Together, we can push the boundaries of what we can achieve." Her words resonated in the hearts of the council members, not because they were grand or boastful, but because they were true. Humanity would not fade into the background of the galactic order. They would stand tall, their strength coming not from technological superiority or overwhelming numbers, but from the collective will of a species determined to forge its path. In the days that followed, humanity's integration into the galactic community began. Representatives from Earth began attending meetings with the various species, engaging in dialogue, and offering new perspectives. Slowly but surely, the galaxy began to change. Old alliances that had been built on decades, even centuries, of shared history now had to adapt to include the unpredictable but undeniably capable human race. The established powers had to confront their own complacency and find new ways of thinking, as humanity's fresh outlook injected new energy into the proceedings. At the same time, humanity also began to learn from the other species. The galaxy, with all its ancient knowledge and vast resources, was an enormous opportunity for growth. Humanity's early space explorations were nothing compared to the technological marvels that other races had mastered, but they were hungry for knowledge, eager to understand the cosmos and find their place in it. Earth's scientists, engineers, and philosophers worked tirelessly, eager to integrate the wisdom of the galaxy into their rapidly developing technologies and philosophies. Yet even as they adapted and grew, humanity remained true to its core. They were a species that never hesitated to question, to explore the unknown, and to challenge the status quo. And now, they would do it as part of something greater than themselves. The galaxy was no longer an unreachable expanse of stars. It was a new home, a new beginning. And so, with that single ship and its human commander, the galaxy began its journey into a new era, one where humanity was no longer an observer of cosmic events, but an active participant in shaping them. What began with a lone vessel, quietly entering the orbit of the Council, now blossomed into the start of an era where humanity would not simply survive, but thrive, innovate, and become a force for change across the stars. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was theirs to build, and they would do it together.